Maybe you should just get out on the porch and eat. My daughter-in-law sneered, her voice cold and careless, right in front of 12 guests after I had spent 14 long hours preparing Christmas dinner. No tears, no argument. I quietly untied my apron, grabbed my plate, and walked straight out into the freezing snow. But she had no idea. Her own cruelty had just unlocked a 21-year-old secret buried right beneath her feet under the solid oak table. A dark truth powerful enough to strip away her mask and utterly destroy the life she so desperately tried to build. Before we go any further, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments below. You might be surprised how many people around the world are living through the exact same silent revenge with Auntie May story right now. A quick note, this story contains fictional elements woven in for reflection and storytelling purposes. Any similarity to names or places is coincidental, but the lesson it carries is entirely worth your time. Snow was falling when I stepped onto the porch. I still had the plate in my hands. Turkey sage stuffing, cranberry sauce, and a small square of the pecan pie I had been baking since 5 that morning. The cold hit me immediately, sharp and clean, the kind of cold that West Hartford saves for the deepest nights of December. Behind me, through the closed front door, I could hear Ella Fitzgerald singing, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." I sat down on the porch bench and set the plate on my lap. I did not cry. I thought about crying. I decided against it. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 63 years old. I taught English language arts for 30 years at Hartwell High School, 2 miles from this house. I have restored antique quilts in the back room of this home for 11 years. I planted the rose bushes along the front fence in 1998. I repainted the porch boards in 2019 on my knees with a brush because I wanted to do it myself. My late husband Harold and I raised our son Ethan in the bedrooms upstairs. Harold died 5 years ago in the master bedroom at the end of the hall with my hand in his. My name is on the deed to this house. Only my name. And 20 minutes ago, my daughter-in-law had told me I would be more comfortable eating out here. I had been watching it happen for 9 months. It had started the previous March when Ethan called on a Sunday evening, his voice carrying the particular tone I had learned over 34 years of being his mother, the tone that meant he needed something and felt ashamed to ask. "Chloe and I have been looking at the numbers," he said. "The rent went up again. We're trying to put together a down payment, and the timeline keeps getting pushed back. If we could stay with you for a few months, maybe 4 or 5, we could actually make this work." I loved my son. I said yes. That was March. It was now December. In the months between, I had watched my kitchen countertops fill with equipment I did not own. I had come home one afternoon to find the oak coffee table Harold and I bought at an estate sale in Litchfield, sitting in the garage replaced by glass and steel that Chloe said opened up the room. In June, I discovered someone had been using my Visa card to purchase Wagyu steaks, imported cheese, and sparkling water from a boutique delivery service. I canceled the card and ordered a replacement without a word. In August, Chloe took my study. That room at the end of the downstairs hallway had been Harold's favorite space in the house. His books, his desk beside the window, my sewing machine in the corner, placed there 6 years ago when I retired and began taking in quilt restoration work. The afternoon light in that room was the best in the house. I returned from a quilting workshop one Thursday to find camera equipment on the floor, my machine pushed into the hallway and Chloe rearranging the furniture with the focused efficiency of someone who had already made up her mind. "The bedroom lighting isn't working for my videos," she said without looking up. "This room gets better afternoon light. You moved my things without asking. I figured you weren't really using it." I looked at Harold's desk. I looked at my machine on the hallway floor. Then I went to the hardware store and bought a deadbolt. The click of the mechanism when I turned the key for the first time was one of the more satisfying sounds I had heard in years. But tonight had been different. Chloe had planned the Christmas party herself, 12 guests from her online network. Tablecloths, wine glasses, floral centerpieces, 3 days filming setup content in my living room, positioning ring lights in corners describing my home as the perfect holiday backdrop to her camera without once asking my permission. I had been in the kitchen since 5 in the morning. Turkey. Sage stuffing with the celery and onion. Harold always insisted on. Cranberry sauce from scratch. My mother's pecan pie, which requires 3 separate steps and cannot be rushed. At 7:30, Chloe came into the kitchen. She was wearing a deep red velvet dress, her phone held at chest height, with the camera facing outward, quietly recording. She looked at my apron, the old holly print one I have owned since 1997, faded now to a soft green, and her expression shifted in a way I recognized. The expression of someone performing patience for an audience. "Eleanor, you have been working so hard in here." Her voice was warm and carrying, but the warmth was entirely performed. "Maybe you should just get out on the porch and eat. My guests are here, and it's kind of a younger crowd. You'd probably enjoy the quiet." The kitchen went very still. I looked past her to the living room doorway where several guests had drifted close enough to hear. I looked at Ethan standing at the edge of the room with a glass of water and his eyes fixed on the floor. His jaw was tight. His shoulders were pulled in. He was making himself small in the way he had been making himself small for 9 months. My son, 34 years old, reducing himself to a shadow in his own mother's house. Not grief, not anger, something colder than either. I untied my apron, folded it once along the strings first, the way I always fold it, set it on the counter beside the stove, picked up my plate and walked to the front door. I did not slam it. I closed it quietly behind me. The porch was dark except for the string lights along the railing I'd put up the first weekend of December. Snow collecting on the boards, my breath making small clouds. I sat on the bench and set my plate on my lap and looked out at the street, the Holloway's tree lit in the front window. Across the way, the tire tracks in the road, already filling with fresh snow. I had lived on this street for 30 years. I cut a piece of turkey with the side of my fork and ate it. It was good. The sage butter had done its job. I had just reached the stuffing when I heard footsteps on the sidewalk, slow, deliberate, the particular rhythm of someone who walks every evening regardless of weather. Thomas Briggs, Harold's oldest friend. They had served together, built things together, argued about baseball for 30 years. Since Harold died, Thomas had kept up his evening walks, and his route still brought him past this house most nights. He stopped when he saw me. "Eleanor, what are you doing out here?" "Having my Christmas dinner," I said. He came up the porch steps and sat in the chair beside me without being asked. He did not say anything right away. Thomas had always understood that some situations required a person to sit down before they spoke. After a moment, he looked through the living room window, the rearranged furniture, the ring lights, the strangers with their wine, and then his eyes found the dining room. He went very still. Eleanor, his voice had changed. "That table." I looked through the window at the oak table, long and dark, the familiar grain I had polished every Thanksgiving for 30 years. Harold and I bought it at... "Harold and I built it," Thomas said quietly, "in my workshop, the winter of '87. He turned to look at me directly. "Eleanor, there is something about that table that Harold never told you. He asked me to keep it until he thought you needed to know." He paused. "He made me promise to tell you only when the time was right." The snow fell between us, soft and indifferent. "Thomas," I said, "is the time right?" He looked at me sitting on my own porch with a plate of Christmas dinner balanced on my lap. "Yes," he said, "I believe tonight is exactly the right time." Thomas did not come inside. He stayed on the porch beside the living room window, positioned where he could see the dining room table without being seen. The party was winding down, coats being retrieved, the particular social music of a gathering that has passed its peak. He described the lock mechanism in a low, steady voice, the way a man describes something he built with his own hands and has thought about many times since. "It's on the underside of the table," he said. "Left side toward the middle leg. Harold routed a channel into the wood. You won't see it unless you're looking. There's a small brass catch about the size of a quarter. Press it and slide it toward the leg at the same time." He paused. He called it the family mailbox, said every family needed a place where the truth could wait until somebody was ready to find it. I looked through the window at the table. 30 years I had eaten at that table. I had never known. "He almost told me," Thomas said. 3 or 4 times. Harold was a private man about the things that mattered most to him. He didn't put things into words unless he was sure they were the right words. He looked at me directly. "But he wanted you to have what's in there, especially if something ever went wrong." I waited until I heard the last guest leave and the front door lock click into place. Then I went inside. Chloe was in the living room reviewing footage on her phone legs, tucked under her on the couch, the satisfied expression of someone who has executed a plan successfully. She did not look up. Ethan was in the kitchen, running water over dishes, his back to me, his shoulders still carrying the tension I had watched him hold all evening. I walked past both of them to the dining room. I crouched beside the left side of the table and ran my fingers along the underside of the oak, smooth and cool, hand-finished with the slight irregularities that machine-made furniture never has. Harold had spent 3 weekends in Thomas's workshop on this table. He had come home with sawdust in his hair and a pride in his face he could not quite keep modest. My fingers found the channel, then the brass catch small and raised exactly as Thomas had described. I pressed and slid simultaneously. Something shifted inside the wood with a soft, definitive click. Harold had built this table to last a lifetime. It turned out he had also built it to speak just not until the right moment. A narrow panel swung down on 2 small hinges, revealing a shallow compartment no larger than a shoebox. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth folded twice, were 3 items. The first was a folded set of papers with a Connecticut notary seal on the top sheet, certified copies of the property deed and Harold's will. The originals were held at our attorney's office downtown. I set them aside. The second was a thin manila envelope unmarked. Inside a single sheet, a real estate transaction record from 2003. I recognized the property address immediately. I recognized the name of the seller, but the name in the buyer line stopped me completely. Gerald Foster. I sat very still. The third item was a small envelope sealed with yellowed tape. On the front, in pencil, large uneven letters, the careful printing of a child concentrating very hard. For Mom and Dad. Private. My hands were not entirely steady when I opened it. Wide-ruled notebook paper, red margin line on the left. The date at the top said October 14th. No year, but I knew immediately Ethan had been 10 that fall. Dear Mom and Dad, I have been thinking about something for a long time. When I grow up, I am going to get married. I don't know who to yet, but if I make a mistake and I pick someone who doesn't know how to be kind to you, I want you to tell me. Don't just be nice about it. Tell me the truth and wake me up. Because I don't want to be the kind of person who lets bad things happen because it's easier. Love, Ethan. I read it twice. Then I folded it along its original creases and held it in both hands and looked at the kitchen wall for a long moment without seeing anything that was actually on it. Something was moving through my chest that I did not have a precise word for. Not quite grief, not quite love. Not quite the particular pain of recognizing that your child was at 10 years old already a better person than the situation he would one day find himself in. My eyes filled. I let them. I was 63 years old and alone in the kitchen, and I was going to allow myself 60 seconds to feel it fully before I continued. I counted them out. Then I wiped my face with the back of my hand and picked up the transaction record again. Gerald Foster. I had known that name for 21 years, though I had not spoken it aloud in nearly as long. I was still sitting with the record in my hands when someone knocked at the front door. 3 short knocks, a neighbor, not a stranger. Diane Holloway stood on my porch steps, her wool coat buttoned to the throat, her breath making small clouds in the cold air. She had lived next door for 16 years, a retired emergency room nurse, practical and unhurried, someone who had seen a great deal and learned not to waste energy on panic. She was holding her phone in both hands. "Eleanor, I'm glad you're still up. I need to show you something." She stepped inside without waiting to be invited, which was typical of Diane. She pulled up the footage and held out her phone. After my husband's truck got keyed last spring, we had a security camera installed on the soffit above the garage door. It faces the street but catches your porch at an angle. She paused. I didn't know it had recorded anything until I checked the footage tonight. I always check it on holidays. The timestamp read December 24th, 7:47 p.m. My own porch lit by the string lights along the railing, clear enough to read expressions. I watched myself walk out of my front door carrying a plate of food. I watched myself sit on the bench and arrange my dinner on my lap, with the careful composure of someone who has decided not to fall apart in the cold. And in the background, through the living room window, Chloe still framed in the kitchen doorway, her phone at chest height recording. The audio was muffled but audible. Maybe you'd be more comfortable eating upstairs. My guests are here, and it's kind of a younger crowd. I handed the phone back. All right, I said. I can send you the full resolution file whenever you need it. Diane looked at my face with the assessing calm of someone who spent 30 years evaluating patients. Are you okay? I'm working on it, I said honestly. After she left, I carried everything from the hidden compartment down the hall to Harold's study and sat at his desk. The room smelled of old paper and linseed oil and the kind of quiet that collects in places where someone spent a great deal of time thinking. I pulled the transaction record close and looked at Gerald Foster's name for a long time. The answer to why that name was in Harold's hidden compartment was already forming at the edges of my memory. And it was heavier than I expected, the weight of something I had done a long time ago and never told anyone. Not even Harold. Not entirely. Until tonight. I sat at Harold's desk until 2 a.m. The transaction record lay flat in front of me the entire time. Gerald Foster's name in the buyer line, the property address of this house below it, the date recorded as April 14th, 2003. Looking at it was the only way I had found to hold the memory still long enough to examine it clearly. Gerald Foster had been a difficult man to like and an easy man to feel sorry for. I had met him in 2001. He and his wife Sandra had moved 3 streets over with their 2 children, a teenage son and a daughter named Chloe. 9 years old, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's way of entering a room as though she expected it to rearrange itself around her. Harold and Gerald had struck up an acquaintance at the hardware store, the way men of a certain generation do, over a shared interest in the correct type of wood screw. By spring of 2003, Gerald's contracting business had collapsed. A large commercial project gone badly, money mismanaged, debts he could not service. The bank moved quickly. The house was going to foreclosure. Harold came home one afternoon and sat across from me at the kitchen table and folded his hands. Eleanor Gerald Foster is going to lose his house. Sandra and the children will have nowhere to go. He paused. I want to help if we can. We did not have the money outright, but my mother had died the previous year and left me her jewelry, a pearl necklace, a diamond ring, a gold bracelet that had belonged to her mother. Along with a savings account I had not yet decided what to do with. We also had 1 car worth something. I sold the jewelry first, then the savings account, then the car. Harold borrowed a neighbor's truck for 4 months until we could buy a used sedan. Between what we raised and a personal loan from Harold's credit union, we had enough to purchase the house from the bank before the foreclosure auction. Gerald never moved back in. He and Sandra relocated to Ohio that summer, where Sandra's sister lived. He left a note in our mailbox, I will find a way to repay this. I promise you. He never did. We did not expect him to. Chloe would have been 11 that summer. I had not connected the names for some time. When Ethan first introduced her years later, I saw a young woman I did not recognize. It was only after she mentioned offhandedly that her family had lived in Hartford when she was young that the first pull of recognition arrived. Even then, I had told myself it was coincidence. Sitting at Harold's desk at 2 a.m, I understood that Harold had been certain. He had kept this document not as a secret to hide, but as a truth to protect until the right moment. I pressed my palms flat against the desk and breathed. Then I turned off the lamp and went to bed. Pastor Ray Coleman arrived at 8:30 the following morning. He came every December 26th, a quiet, unhurried visit to check on members of his congregation who had found the holiday difficult. Ray was 66 tall, with the particular stillness that develops in people who have spent decades sitting with other people's hardest moments. He had been Harold's pastor and had become mine after Harold died. I told him everything. I did not edit or soften it. The 9 months, the study and the credit card and the furniture. Last night, Chloe's words, the plate on my lap, the porch in the snow, Thomas and the hidden compartment, Gerald Foster and the pearl necklace that had been my mother's. Ray listened without interrupting. He held his coffee cup in both hands and kept his eyes on me until I was finished. "Eleanor," he said, "you have been carrying this house on your back for 9 months. Longer if we're counting what you did in 2003. He set his cup down. "You already know what needs to happen. What you haven't decided is whether you're willing to do it." "I'm willing," I said. It was the first time in 9 months I had said those 2 words without reservation. They felt different out loud than they had inside my chest. "Then stop waiting for permission," he said, "and do it." I had an appointment that afternoon with Susan Hartwell. I had told Ethan and Chloe that morning I had a routine follow-up with my doctor, the kind of appointment nobody asks about and nobody remembers. Chloe had not looked up from her phone. Susan ran a family law and real estate practice on Asylum Avenue, 12 minutes from my house. I had first contacted her in October when I finally admitted that patience was not a strategy. She was 52 precise in her language and had the useful quality of explaining complicated things without making you feel you should have already known them. I sat across her desk and put the certified copies from Harold's compartment in front of her. "I want to proceed," I said. "I want to give formal notice." She reviewed the documents efficiently. "Your son and daughter-in-law have been living in your home since March with no lease agreement, no written rental contract, no formal tenancy arrangement of any kind." She looked up. "In Connecticut, that makes them licensees, not tenants." "What does that mean practically?" "Licensees don't have the protections that tenants have under landlord-tenant law, no automatic rights regarding notice periods, cause for eviction, or court process. As the property owner, you have the right to revoke their license by providing reasonable written notice." She paused. "Given the unauthorized use of your financial accounts, the occupation of spaces without permission, and the pattern of conduct over 9 months, I can provide a written legal opinion confirming that 14 days constitutes reasonable notice in these specific circumstances." She placed a legal pad and a pen on the desk. "Do you want me to draft the notice?" I looked at the legal pad. I thought about Harold's desk and the letter Ethan had written at 10 years old and the pearl necklace that was now a document in a locked compartment. "No," I said. "I'll write it myself." I drove home in the early dark of a December afternoon with Susan's written opinion folded inside the property deed on the passenger seat. I went to Harold's study, sat at his desk, and uncapped the pen I had used for 30 years of lesson plans and grade reports. I wrote without hesitation. The date the 14 days would begin, the date the premises must be vacated, the consequences of non-compliance consistent with Connecticut property law. I signed my full name at the bottom, Eleanor Ruth Vance, and did not read it back because every word was exactly what I meant. I folded it into the envelope, sealed it, and set it on the corner of the desk. Then I sat back in Harold's chair and looked at the room, his books, his photographs, the woodworking tools, and the glass jar on the windowsill. Tomorrow, I thought. Not tonight. Tonight, I was going to sit here for a while and let the room be what it was. I waited 5 days before I gave it to her, not because I was uncertain, because I wanted to begin the new year with a clean line, the old one behind me, the 14 days ahead of me, and no confusion about where the boundary fell. December 31st seemed exactly right. Before I tell you what I found in that study the next morning, something that changed everything, I thought I knew about Chloe's entire career type, the number 3 in the comments right now. It lets me know you're still here with me. And trust me, you do not want to miss what comes next. I was in the study by 7 the next morning. The sealed envelope was still on the corner of Harold's desk where I had left it the night before. I looked at it for a moment, set it aside, and turned to the business of reclaiming the room. Chloe had occupied the study for 4 months. A ring light on a collapsible stand, 2 camera tripods, a rolling cart of accessories, lens filters, microphone attachments, color calibration cards, a dedicated laptop plugged into the outlet beside Harold's bookshelf. My sewing machine pushed into the hallway, Harold's desk covered with white backdrop fabric, his books rearranged by spine color with no regard for their contents or authors. I started with the ring light. I worked methodically and without particular anger. The camera equipment went into the hallway in a neat stack. The white fabric came off Harold's desk. The books went back into their original positions, Steinbeck on the third shelf left side, woodworking references on the bottom military history, along the top organized by theater and date. I had looked at these shelves for 30 years. I knew every placement. It took 40 minutes to restore the room to itself. I was returning my sewing machine to its corner when I found a notebook on the floor behind the door, partially hidden as though it had been kicked there and forgotten. I picked it up. It was one of mine, a green hardcover composition book from my final years at Hartwell High Unit, plans for the American Literature Survey course I had taught to juniors. Fitzgerald Morrison O'Connor, annotated with questions developed over 30 years of teaching. Several pages had been torn out near the back. I looked at the torn edges. Then I looked at Chloe's laptop still plugged into the wall. I sat down and opened it. The home screen showed a folder labeled Content Archive Master with subfolders going back 2.5 years. I opened the first document. It was a 12-page video script titled Teaching Your Children to Think Critically, a Framework for Modern Parents. I read the first paragraph. Then I read it again. The sentences had been restructured, a few phrases substituted with simpler alternatives. But the framework was mine, the specific sequence of concepts, the pedagogical structure I had developed over 15 years of teaching analytical thinking to 16-year-olds. I had written the original version in 1998 and revised it 4 times. I knew every argument in it the way you know the layout of a house you have lived in for decades. I opened a second document, then a third, then 5 more. By the time I had worked through 8 files, my hands were very still on the keyboard, and there was a pressure behind my sternum that I was managing carefully the way you manage a fire that you cannot afford to let spread. 214 documents in the archive, video scripts, discussion guides, parenting frameworks, educational philosophies, all of it drawn from 30 years of work done in classrooms and written in notebooks and refined through decades of teaching real children in real circumstances. Chloe had 280,000 followers. Her channel had been running for 2.5 years. I closed the laptop. 214 documents, 2.5 years, 280,000 people who had trusted her and had unknowingly trusted me without ever knowing my name. I was still sitting in the chair when the door opened and a young woman stepped in. She stopped when she saw me, perhaps 28, dark hair, pulled back, a color-coded folder in one hand and a phone in the other. The slightly harried expression of someone managing logistics since early morning. "I'm sorry, I was looking for the content drive. Chloe asked me to pull some files." She looked at the reorganized bookshelves at the absence of camera equipment. "I'm Madison Clark. Content Management." "I know who you are," I said. "I've seen you here before." Madison looked at the laptop screen, still showing the Content Archive folder. Something moved across her face, the kind of change that happens when a person recognizes something they were not expecting to recognize. "Mrs. Vance," she said slowly, "what were you looking at?" "The Content Archive, all 214 files." She came further into the room and looked at the screen properly. "She told me she wrote them herself," Madison said. Her voice had gone quiet. "Every script, her methodology, her framework. She had me format them, organize them, schedule them, but she said the content was hers." "It is not hers," I said. Madison closed her eyes for 3 seconds. When she opened them, something had settled in her face, an unpleasant weight finding its final position. "How much of what's in those files came from you?" "All of it. 30 years of curriculum work. Some of it goes back to lesson plans I wrote in the early 1990s. She pressed her lips together. "I formatted those documents. I scheduled the uploads. I handled the brand partnerships. A pause. I didn't know. I believe you, I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Chloe used to send me source material by email. Her personal account to mine, not the business account. Photos of handwritten pages, scanned documents. She told me to transcribe them into script format. I thought they were her notes. She looked at the laptop. I have 2 years of those emails. Under the Copyright Act, Title 17 of the United States Code, a work is protected from the moment of its creation. No registration required. The creator holds exclusive rights to reproduction and distribution. Willful infringement for commercial gain carries statutory damages of up to $150,000 per work. Susan Hartwell had explained this to me in October. Those emails were sent to your personal account. I said, you are the recipient. Under federal law, you have the right to share correspondence sent to you. But I want you to understand what you would be doing. This is not a small matter. Madison set the color-coded folder on the edge of the desk. I organized her schedule. I edited her captions. I answered her audience comments for 2 years. Her voice carried the steadiness of someone maintaining control, because losing it would not help anything. I would like 30 minutes to think about this. Take the time you need, I said. I went to the kitchen and stood at the counter while the kettle heated, looking out at the backyard, the garden beds under snow, the cedar fence Harold had built the summer Ethan turned 5. 28 minutes later, Madison appeared in the doorway. I forwarded everything to a new folder, she said. Her hand was not entirely steady. 2 years of source material emails, photos of handwritten pages, scanned documents, typed notes, all with timestamps and headers from Chloe's personal account. She held out her phone. Your attorney, whatever is more useful. My attorney, I said. Susan Hartwell. I gave her the address. Madison typed it in and pressed send. She stood for a moment with her phone in her hand. I'm sorry, she said. I should have asked more questions. You didn't know, I said. Now you do. After she left, I walked to Harold's study, picked up the sealed envelope from the corner of the desk, and carried it to the foot of the stairs. Ethan, I called up. Tell Chloe I need to see her in the kitchen. Ethan came downstairs alone. I heard Chloe's voice from the upstairs hallway, the rising pitch she used when performing frustration for an invisible audience, and then the bedroom door closing, and then my son's footsteps on the stairs. Measured, deliberate. The footsteps of a man taking the time to decide something before he reached the bottom. He appeared in the kitchen doorway and stopped. I had not looked at Ethan, really looked at him in longer than I wanted to admit. There is a way that worry becomes familiar enough that you stop seeing its source clearly. I had been so occupied with managing the situation around him that I had not looked at the situation inside him. His face was thinner than it had been in the spring. The skin beneath his eyes carried a darkness that was not the ordinary darkness of a poor night's sleep. His hands at his sides had the stillness of someone who has been running on insufficient fuel for long enough that stillness has become a conservation strategy. My son was exhausted in a way that one night's rest would not fix. Sit down, I said. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where Harold had helped him with geometry homework, where I had signed his permission slips and listened to his first attempts at explaining who he was becoming. How long has it been since you slept a full night? I asked. Something moved across his face, the particular vulnerability of being seen accurately by someone who loves you. Since about September, he said. I've been working nights, he continued. 2 shifts a week, sometimes 3. Delivery driving Tuesday and Thursday. Security at the Farmington Avenue warehouse on weekends. I told Chloe it was a company project. Extended hours on a commercial build. She believed you. She didn't ask follow-up questions about things that don't affect her directly. What were you doing with the money? Ethan reached into his back pocket and put a small notebook on the table, a pocket-sized composition book, the cover worn soft at the corners, filled with columns of figures, dates, running totals. He slid it across to me. The first entry was dated 14 months ago. The amounts were modest but consistent, unbroken across 14 months of Tuesday nights and Thursday nights and weekends. The first part is the debt, he said. Dad borrowed $62,000 when you were sick. The hospitalization, the specialists, the medications insurance didn't cover. He didn't want you to know. He figured he'd pay it down before you noticed, but then he stopped, cleared his throat. Then he didn't get the chance. I sat very still. Harold had never told me. In 5 years of settling his affairs, of going through every account and paper, I had not found this. Harold had been protecting me the way he had always protected me, by carrying things quietly without complaint until they were resolved or until he ran out of time. I found the loan paperwork 8 months after the funeral, Ethan said. In a folder he kept in the truck, not in the house, not in his files, not anywhere you would have looked when you were going through everything. I don't think he planned it that way. I think he just hadn't figured out how to bring it home yet. He looked at the notebook. I've paid back $47,000. The remaining balance is just under 15. Ethan. My voice came out differently than I intended. You've been doing this for 6 years, Mom. He said it without self-pity, which was somehow harder to hear than self-pity would have been. It's fine. I wanted to. He was my dad. I pressed my palms flat against the table. The same kitchen. 30 years of mornings and evenings contained in the grain of it. What else? I said, because there was more. I could see it in the way he was sitting. I called Kevin Marsh in September, he said. We went to Yukon together. He's an engineer at the firm now. I asked him to recommend a family law attorney, not for advice, for a filing. He looked at me steadily. I've been ready since October. Connecticut is a no-fault state. I just have to demonstrate that the marriage has broken down irretrievably. A pause. It has. How long have you known that? He thought about it honestly. About 2 years in. But knowing something and being ready to act on it are different things. He turned the coffee cup in his hands. I kept telling myself if I was patient enough, eventually, we'd find our way to something workable. He set the cup down. I was wrong about that. You weren't pushing back on the small things, I said. You were absorbing them. Yes, he said simply. I was. I stood, refilled both cups, and looked out the kitchen window. A cardinal had landed on the snowy fence rail, a flash of red against the white, impossibly vivid. Harold had always kept a bird feeder on that fence. I had let it go empty after he died. I made a mental note to refill it. Call Kevin, I said. Right now, I want to hear it from him directly. Ethan dialed. It rang twice. Hey. Kevin's voice was clear and unhurried through the speaker. Everything okay? I'm with my mom. She wants to know about the filing. Sure. Mrs. Vance, the petition for dissolution of marriage is complete and signed. Ethan filed it with Hartford Superior Court on December 20th. The court issued a summons for Chloe Vance on the 23rd. Standard Connecticut dissolution shall have 30 days to respond once formally served. The financial records Ethan had me hold are in my office files locked cabinet. Thank you, Kevin, I said. Yes, ma'am. Ethan ended the call. We sat for a moment in the particular quiet that settles between two people who have just said something true and are letting it find its place. I reached into my cardigan pocket and set the sealed envelope on the table between us. A notice to vacate, I said. 14 days. January 14th is the deadline. Susan Hartwell has confirmed it's legally sound. Her written opinion is included. Ethan picked up the envelope and turned it over in his hands. I should have said something the first time she moved your furniture, he said. When she took the study, when she used your card. His jaw tightened. I kept telling myself I was keeping the peace. What I was actually doing was making it easier for her to keep going. Yes, I said. You were. The word landed the way true things do, without softness, but without cruelty either. Just the plain weight of it. He stood, straight in a way I had not seen him stand in. A long time, not rigid, not braced, but upright in the manner of someone who has put down a heavy thing and can finally use their full height. I'll give it to her, he said. I know you will. At the kitchen doorway, he stopped his hand on the frame. He did not turn around. Mom. Yes. I'm sorry I made you wait this long. I looked at his back, the set of his shoulders, the envelope at his side. My son, 34 years old, carrying his father's debts and his own failures, and something that looked finally like the beginning of his own life. Go give her the envelope, I said. He went. I listened to his footsteps on the stairs, steady now, unhesitating, and I thought about Harold, who had carried a loan in a truck folder for years and never said a word. I thought about the cardinal on the fence. I thought about the bird feeder that had been empty for 5 years. Some things you let go too long without tending. That did not mean they could not be tended again. Chloe read the notice 3 times. I watched her from across the kitchen table on the morning of December 31st. She had picked up the envelope from the counter, read her name on the front, and opened it without asking permission. By the 3rd reading, she had set the paper flat and was pressing both palms against it as though the document might move if she let go. January 14th, she said. That's correct. Her face moved through surprise, anger, and calculation before settling on something that was trying to be contempt but was undermined by the slight tremor at the corner of her mouth. You can't do this, she said. I have done it. The notice is legal and has been reviewed by an attorney. Her written opinion is the 2nd page. Chloe read Susan Hartwell's name and credentials at the top of the 2nd page. Something in her face deflated the expression of someone discovering the terrain is less negotiable than assumed. She turned toward the hallway. Ethan, come down here right now. Ethan appeared 30 seconds later with a coffee cup and the look of a man who had been expecting this conversation and had decided in advance how he would conduct himself. Did you know about this? Chloe demanded. Yes, Ethan said. Your mother is throwing us out. My mother is exercising her legal right as the sole owner of this property. His voice was even not cold, not unkind, simply factual in the manner of someone who has rehearsed the truth enough times that it no longer costs them anything to say it. We have 14 days. I'd suggest we use them productively. Chloe stared at him with the expression of someone looking at something familiar that has unexpectedly changed shape. Then she picked up her phone and walked out of the kitchen. The 1st of January, I disconnected the Wi-Fi extender on the 2nd floor and locked it in Harold's study. I was back in the kitchen with my coffee before Chloe came downstairs. The Wi-Fi isn't working up there, she said. The upstairs extender has been disconnected. The ground floor network is still active. I turned a page of my book. There's a coffee shop on Farmington Avenue 2 blocks from here. Reliable Wi-Fi, good seating. She stood in the doorway for several seconds, jaw working through something she decided not to say. 40 minutes later, the front door closed. The 2nd of January, I took back my car keys. Chloe handed them over with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Of course, no problem at all. I could hear the effort it cost her to say it pleasantly. From the 3rd of January, I cooked for one. No announcement, no explanation. I prepared what I intended to eat, served it on my own plate, and ate at my own table. The effect was not dramatic, it was cumulative. Each adjustment was small. Taken together, they constituted the removal of a support structure that had been used without anyone acknowledging it was being used. By the 5th of January, Chloe's largest advertising partner, a home goods company paying her a monthly retainer for product placement, sent a formal email terminating their agreement. She had missed 2 deadlines and had not responded to their communications in 4 days. She came downstairs that afternoon and read the email 3 times at the kitchen table. Her face doing the same thing it had done with the notice to vacate the rapid progression through surprise, anger, and calculation, followed by a settling that was not quite acceptance. She did not tell me what the email said. She did not need to. I had spent 9 months watching Chloe build a life on conveniences she had not earned. It takes considerably less time for that kind of structure to come apart. On the evening of January 7th, I was finishing quilt binding in Harold's study when I heard Chloe's voice through the ceiling, the slight elevation and smoothing of tone that distinguished her on-camera voice from her actual one. She'd been recording in the bedroom since losing access to the study. I returned to my binding. The following morning, Madison Clark called. Mrs. Vance. Her voice was taut. Chloe posted a video last night. I think you need to know what's in it before it gets any bigger." "How big is it?" 400,000 views when I checked 20 minutes ago, still climbing. I set her down my coffee cup. "Tell me what she said." Madison described it efficiently the way someone describes something they find professionally distressing and personally mortifying. Dim bedroom lighting. No ring light, the deliberate aesthetic of authenticity. Chloe had been crying or performing crying with enough technical skill that the distinction was difficult to make. She had described being forced out of her family home by a vindictive mother-in-law, being left without heat, without food, without basic necessities. She had used the word abuse 4 times. She said, "Heat," I said. "Yes. The heat in this house has been running continuously since October, at 68 degrees. "I know," Madison said. "I've been in your house." "Is there anything in that video that constitutes a verifiable, factual claim?" "Several things," she said, "all either false or misleading. I've already drafted a rebuttal. I wanted to ask before I posted anything." "Don't post anything yet," I said. "I need to make a call first." I called Diane Holloway. She picked up on the first ring, which told me she had already seen the video. "I was going to call you," she said. "I checked my security camera footage from Christmas Eve again this morning. I have the full clip backed up in 2 places. Can you send it to Susan Hartwell's office?" "Already done," Diane said. "I sent it at 7 this morning. I had a feeling we'd be needing it." Something moved through me, not quite relief, but the particular steadiness that arrives when you realize the ground beneath you is more solid than you thought. I ended the call and sat for a moment in Harold's chair. Across the house, Chloe's phone began to ring, then ring again. Sharper than her usual notifications, incoming calls. It rang 4 times and stopped. Started again. I returned to my quilt binding. Some things you do not need to watch in order to understand. You simply continue your work and let the day proceed, and certain situations resolve themselves with considerably less intervention than the people inside them believe will be necessary. Chloe's phone rang twice more. Then the house went quiet. In that quiet, the ordinary, unremarkable quiet of a January morning on a West Hartford street, something was already ending. I could feel it the way you feel weather changing, the particular shift in pressure that tells you the front is moving through whether you are ready for it or not. I tied off my binding thread and trimmed the end. Tomorrow I thought would be a different kind of day. What Diane brought to my door that morning, I want you to be sitting down for this. Before I go any further, drop a stay in the comments so I know you're still with me. Every single one of those comments reminds me why I keep telling these stories. A small note what follows contains some fictional elements added to give this story the shape it needed. If that gives you pause, this is a graceful place to stop no judgment at all. Diane Holloway knocked at 7:14 in the morning. She came in without removing her coat, a delivery, not a visit. She set her phone on the kitchen table and pressed play without preamble. Diane's security camera was mounted on the soffit above her garage door, angled toward the street. From across the road and slightly elevated, it caught a clear view of my front porch and the living room window beside my door. The timestamp read December 24th, 7:47 p.m. Through the window, the warm interior light made the scene visible with surprising clarity. Chloe's ring lights in the corners, guests in the background, and in the foreground, a figure in a red velvet dress standing in the kitchen doorway. The directional microphone in the kitchen window I had cracked while cooking meant her voice came through with uncomfortable clarity. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable eating upstairs." Then the front door opening, then me in the holly print apron stepping onto the porch with my plate, the door closing, the string lights illuminating the bench where I sat down and arranged my dinner on my lap with the careful composure of someone who has decided not to fall apart in the cold. Diane paused the video there. She did not need to show me the rest, neither did I need to see it. I watched myself for a moment, this woman on her own porch in the snow with her Christmas dinner, and felt something that was not quite pity and not quite anger. Simply the clear-eyed recognition of what the past 9 months had looked like from the outside. Since about 4 this morning, Diane said. Someone cross-referenced the timestamps with Chloe's video and posted a side-by-side. By 6, it had been shared 40,000 times. She pulled up a second screen, 2 clips side by side. On the left, Chloe's bedroom video, dim lighting, careful vulnerability, the word abuse, delivered with practiced weight. On the right, the security camera footage. The contrast was entirely self-explanatory. YouTube sent a content review notice at 5:47, Diane said, based on the copyright claims already filed. That's separate from the public response, but they're happening simultaneously. Are you all right? She asked before leaving. I am managing, I said, which at the moment is sufficient. Diane looked at me the way she must have looked at patients in the emergency room assessing steady, deciding whether the situation required intervention or simply time. She decided on time. She was usually right. She nodded once and went. At 10:30, Chloe knocked on the door of Harold's study. 2 knocks, a pause, then one more. Uncertain. The knock of someone not sure of their reception. She opened the door but did not come fully inside. Yesterday's clothes, eyes slightly swollen, hair pulled back hastily the first time I had seen her without the full armor of her morning routine. What happened on Christmas Eve? She began. The way I spoke to you. I want you to know I didn't mean it the way it came out. How did you mean it? I asked. Her jaw tightened. I was under a lot of pressure that night. The filming, the guests. Chloe. My voice was even. You told me I would be more comfortable watching television upstairs while you entertained your guests in my dining room. In my house, which I own, where I have lived for 30 years. I am not interested in what you were under that night. I am interested in what you said. Her chin lifted. I've been trying to apologize. You've been trying to explain, I said. Those are different things. An apology begins with the other person. An explanation begins with yourself. I have taught that distinction to 16-year-olds for 30 years. I recognize it clearly. Something moved across her face, not performed, but actual. Brief, unguarded, gone almost before it arrived. Shame, perhaps, or the discomfort of being seen accurately by someone you have underestimated. Then it closed over. January 14th, she said. We'll be out. She pulled the door shut behind her. I sat for a moment in Harold's chair. The room was exactly itself, books in order, woodworking tools in their glass jar afternoon light, angling through the west window in the way it did only here. I had held on to this room for 4 months. It had required a deadbolt and a hardware store trip, and 30 years of knowing where everything belonged. But it was still here. It had always been here. Thomas Briggs arrived at 3. He came up the porch steps carefully and carried a wooden box, not large, the kind a careful person builds, to hold something worth keeping. He hung his coat on the hook by the door the way he had always done when Harold was alive. When I brought the tea and sat across from him, he slid the box toward me. Harold gave me this about a year before he died. His exact words, I wrote them down, were, "Tom, when Eleanor is ready to make something new, give her this. She'll know what to do with it." He paused. I didn't know when ready would look like, but I think I know now. I lifted the lid. Inside, folded with the care of someone who understood that fabric holds memory, were 2 pieces of clothing. A blue chambray shirt, Harold's Saturday shirt, with a small cuff repair I had made myself 15 years ago, and a child's sweater, red wool, faded to soft brick, a small star pattern across the chest. Ethan had worn it through the entire winter he was 5. I had knitted it myself from a pattern my mother gave me. My hands were not steady when I lifted them out. He kept them, I said. Harold was a man who understood that objects hold people, Thomas said quietly, even after the people are gone. I held the blue shirt against my chest for just a moment, long enough to feel 30 years compress into the texture of chambray under my hands. Then I folded it carefully and set it beside the red sweater. "Tell him thank you," I said. Thomas's eyes had gone bright. "I know he can't hear me, but tell him anyway." "I think he knows," Thomas said. I went to the hallway closet and retrieved the holly print apron. I found the section along the lower left panel, deep green cotton with small red berries, the part that had faded the least over 27 years of Thanksgiving and Christmas and ordinary Tuesdays. I brought it back and set it with the shirt and the sweater. "I need to finish something," I told Thomas. "Will you stay?" "As long as you need," he said. I threaded my needle and began. I was up at 5 on the morning of January 14th. Not because I could not sleep, I had slept more soundly than I had in months, the deep and uncomplicated sleep of someone who has made a decision and carried it all the way through. I was up at 5 because I wanted the kitchen to myself. I wanted to make my coffee in my espresso machine on my own counter and sit at my own table in the quiet of a January morning before the day began. The finished quilt lay folded at the center of the table where I had placed it the night before, the blue chambray of Harold's Saturday shirt in the upper left, the red wool of Ethan's childhood sweater in the lower right, and along the lower border, a strip of deep green cotton with small red berries, the front panel of a holly print apron that had seen 27 years of Christmas mornings in this kitchen. I sat with my coffee and looked at it for a while. Ethan came downstairs at 7:30. He was dressed carefully, the kind of clothes you wear when something matters. He set a manila envelope on the table beside the quilt without speaking, poured a coffee, and stood at the counter facing the window. We did not say anything for several minutes, which between us had always been a form of communication rather than an absence of it. At 8:15, we heard a suitcase dragging across the floor above us. Then another. Ethan set his cup down and straightened. Chloe appeared in the kitchen doorway at 8:43. Her coat was on, her hair was done, and behind her in the hallway 2 large suitcases stood upright against the banister. She looked at Ethan, then at me, then at the quilt on the table which she had not seen before, and at the manila envelope beside it. "What is that?" she said. Ethan held the envelope out to her. "A copy of the petition for dissolution of marriage. I filed with Hartford Superior Court on December 20th. The summons was issued on the 23rd. You have 30 days to respond. Kevin Marsh is my point of contact. His number is on the cover page." Chloe did not take it immediately. She looked at it the way you look at something that has closed off the exit you were counting on. "You cannot be serious," she said. "Ethan, this is our marriage." "I've been trying to talk to you for 2 years, he said. His voice was not raised. It was quieter than usual, the quietness of something that is finished rather than something holding back. "There is no good time. There is just the decision." Her jaw tightened. She turned to me. "You did this. You turned him against me." "Ethan made his own decisions," I said. "He has been making them carefully and quietly for months. I have nowhere to go." The rawness in her voice was real now, not performed, simply real. Her hands had curled into fists at her sides. "The partnerships are gone. The channel is under review. I have nowhere to go." I stood. I went to Harold's study and returned with the certified documents I had kept in the desk drawer since Christmas Eve, the notarized copy of the property deed and the certified copy of Harold's will, both bearing the filing stamp of Hartford Probate Court. I placed them on the table in front of Ethan. Then I looked at Chloe. "This house will belong to Ethan when I am gone," I said. "Harold made that provision in his will, and it is legally binding. In the meantime, it belongs to me as it has for 30 years. I kept my voice even and clear the way I had kept it for 30 years of telling students things they needed to hear. "I want to tell you something, Chloe, and I want you to hear it fully." She looked at me. Her chin was up, her composure intact, and beneath it she was frightened. I had seen that combination many times. It belongs to people who have pushed too far and are only now understanding the distance they have traveled. 21 years ago, I said, "Your father lost this house. The bank was going to take the property and your family was going to have nowhere to go. I sold my mother's jewelry and my car, and I borrowed money from Harold's credit union, and I bought this house before the foreclosure auction. I did it because it was right and because you were 11 years old, and you did not deserve to lose your home because of decisions you had not made." Something moved across her face, not the performance of an emotion, but an actual one. The shift that happens when information reorganizes everything a person thought they understood. "I never told anyone," I continued. "Your father was too ashamed. I respected that and let it remain unspoken. You came into my house not knowing any of this. You did not know what it had cost me, and you treated it as though it were something you were entitled to." I paused. "I saved your family once. That was a choice I made freely, and I do not regret it. But I am not able to save you from yourself. That is work only you can do." I picked up the quilt from the table and held it out to Ethan. He took it with both hands. Chloe looked at the quilt in his arms. She looked at the suitcases in the hallway. Then she looked at me. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "About the house. My father never—" "I know he didn't," I said. "I understand why. Gerald Foster had carried his shame all the way to Ohio and never set it down. His daughter had inherited his house, his pride, and apparently his habit of never looking too closely at what things had actually cost someone else." Outside, a car pulled to the curb. The taxi Ethan had called at 6 that morning. Chloe picked up the manila envelope. She held it at her side and looked around my kitchen one last time. The espresso machine, the window, the table that had held a family's secrets underneath its surface for 37 years. She looked at all of it as though she were seeing it for the first time. Then she picked up her handbag and walked to the hallway. Ethan held the front door open while she maneuvered the cases over the threshold. At the bottom of the porch steps, she stopped and looked back once, not at Ethan. At me. I did not look away. She turned and walked to the taxi. The driver loaded the cases. The door closed. The engine sent small clouds of exhaust into the cold air, and the car moved slowly along the snow-covered street, turned left at the end of the block, and was gone. Ethan came to stand beside me. His hand rested on my shoulder, not squeezing, not patting, simply there with the solid warmth of someone who has been beside you for 34 years and intends to remain so. "Mom," he said. "I know," I said. We stood in the cold air for another moment. Then I stepped back inside. Ethan followed. I closed the door. The street was empty and white and very quiet. And for the first time in 9 months, so was the house in exactly the way it was supposed to be. The house was quiet in a way it had not been for 9 months. Not the strained quiet of people avoiding each other. Not the brittle quiet of rooms where things have been left unsaid too long. This was different, the quiet of a house that has returned to itself, the way a river returns to its natural course after something blocking it upstream has finally gone. I went to the closet and took out my holly print apron, the original from which I had cut the panel for the quilt, and tied it around my waist. The fabric was faded and soft, worn to the texture of something that has been trusted for a long time. Ethan watched me tie the strings. Something in the set of his face changed. "Let's start upstairs," I said. We worked through the morning methodically. Chloe had left things behind, shoes, beauty products, magazines. I found a cardboard box, packed everything carefully, wrote her name on top, and set it in the hallway to be shipped. I did not throw anything away. That was not how I had been raised to handle other people's belongings, regardless of the circumstances. At 11:30, we stood in the doorway of Harold's study. I took the key from my cardigan pocket and turned it. The deadbolt clicked open with the same solid sound it had made the first time, the sound I had decided, on a November afternoon at the hardware store, would mean something beginning rather than something ending. The room was exactly as I had left it. Books in their correct order. Harold's desk beside the window. I carried the finished quilt from the kitchen and placed it over Harold's leather reading chair, too worn for anywhere else in the house and too comfortable to replace. Harold's shirt, Ethan's sweater, and along the lower border the panel I had cut from my own apron on the night this all began. Ethan ran his hand slowly across the surface, found the blue chambray, found the red wool, then turned the lower border over and looked at the green cotton. His shoulders dropped, not in defeat, but in the way they drop when something carried for a very long time is finally set down somewhere safe. "Mom." His voice came out smaller than he intended. "Is that from the apron?" "The front panel," I said. He pressed his lips together. His jaw worked. One tear made it down the left side of his face before he wiped it quickly with the back of his hand, the slightly embarrassed gesture of a man who has not cried in front of his mother since childhood. "It's really good," he said. "The quilt." "I know," I said. "Sit down." At 1 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Thomas and Pastor Ray arrived together. Thomas carried a paper bag inside a dark glass bottle with a label in Harold's handwriting. Concord grape wine from the last batch Harold had bottled the September before he died. He said to open it when something happened that he would have wanted to be there for. Thomas's jaw moved. Ray put a hand on his shoulder. Ethan looked at the bottle, then at the window, blinking. I set 4 glasses on the table. Harold's good glasses. "Open it, Thomas," I said. He did. The wine was good, not remarkable. Harold had been a careful winemaker, not an exceptional one, but it tasted like every autumn he had spent tending those grapes along the back fence, and that made it exactly right. Diane arrived at 2:30 with a sweet potato casserole. At 3, her phone buzzed. "It's from Madison Clark," she said. "YouTube completed their review. The copyright claims have been upheld. The affected videos have been removed from Chloe Vance's channel. The creator on record has been updated to Eleanor Vance." She set the phone down. "She says she's sorry she can't be there." Thomas lifted his glass. "I believe Harold would consider this sufficient cause." We drank. The afternoon moved the way afternoons do when there is nowhere else to be. Ray and Thomas argued about baseball. Diane told a story from her ER days that was simultaneously appalling and very funny. Ethan laughed at the end of the table, genuinely, the way he had laughed as a boy before life had given him reasons to be careful about it. At 4:30, I went out to fill the bird feeder. I had bought the seed 2 weeks earlier, the morning after Ethan told me about the nights he had spent paying down his father's debt, when I stood at the kitchen window and saw the empty feeder and decided it had been empty long enough. I filled the cedar post feeder Harold had built the summer Ethan turned 5 and stood in the January cold watching it for a moment. Nothing came immediately. The seed was there. They would find it. I went back inside. 11 months later, on the morning of December 25th, snow fell on West Hartford in the soft, unhurried way of a storm that is not trying to prove anything. I was in the kitchen by 6, the turkey already in the oven, the house carrying the smell of sage and butter. Ethan came downstairs at 7, poured a coffee, and stood beside me at the counter. "What do you need?" he said. "The celery," so I said. "Small pieces." He was not a confident cook, but a willing one, which is the more important quality. Thomas arrived at noon with this year's Concord wine. Pastor Ray came at 1. They argued about baseball while Ethan and I finished the meal. We sat down at 4. Harold's good dishes. 4 candles. A centerpiece of cedar branches Diane had left on the porch the previous week, with a note that said only for the table. I sat in my usual chair facing the window. 3 cardinals on the bird feeder. I noticed them and did not say anything because some things are sufficient simply in the noticing. Ray said, "Grace, brief, honest, exactly right." Ethan passed the stuffing. Thomas poured the wine. We ate. At some point, I looked around at the 3 of them and thought about the 9 months that had preceded this evening and the 30 years before that, and the chain of decisions and losses and recoveries that had brought us to this table on this night. I thought about Harold, who had built a hidden compartment and filled it with truths worth waiting for. I thought about Ethan at 10 years old writing a letter he hoped he would never need. A home is the place where your voice matters. I still believed that, but I understood now that it is also the place where your silence matters. The silence of someone who knows what she has stopped taking it for granted, and sits at her own table on Christmas evening, feeling without complication that she is exactly where she is supposed to be. I picked up my glass. "To Harold," I said. "To Harold," said Thomas and Ray and Ethan. We drank. Outside, snow continued to fall soft and even covering the street, and the fence, and the bird feeder, and the bare branches of the maple in the backyard. Inside, the candles burned. The meal was warm, and in Harold's study on the armrest of an old leather chair, a quilt made of blue chambray and red wool and faded green cotton lay still and quiet, entirely at home in the house where it had always belonged. I spent 9 months learning the difference between generosity and surrender. I loved my son and I welcomed his wife, and I told myself that patience was a virtue. But patience without boundaries is not a virtue. It is an invitation, and I let that invitation stay open far too long. If I could say one thing to anyone watching this family drama, does not always arrive with warnings. It arrives quietly, one small compromise at a time, until the day you find yourself eating Christmas dinner on your own porch in the snow. Do not wait for that day. Speak earlier than you think you need to. Hold your boundaries before they are taken from you. I also believe, and I say this plainly, that the truth has a way of finding the right moment. Harold knew that. He built a compartment for it. God has a way of making sure the things that matter most do not stay hidden forever. These are the revenge stories with Mom that nobody expects to live through, but some of us do, and we come out the other side knowing who we are. If this family drama reached something in, you leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done differently. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, there are more stories waiting for you on this channel. These revenge stories with Mom are stories I carry with me. Thank you for staying until the very end. It means more than you know. The stories on this channel contain fictional elements crafted for the purpose of reflection and life lessons. If this type of content isn't for you, we completely respect that. Feel free to explore other content that speaks to your heart.